think I found a way for a blind person to use the cameras in Five Nights at Freddy's. No sight doesn't mean they can't track someone or something. We'll be relying on the mechanics from Five Nights at Freddy's 1. The doors, the lights and limited power, and of course, the cameras. And with that, let's see what happens when our night guard is blind. Someone with low vision might actually be the easiest to catch off guard. Dependent on the vision they have, they might actually have the luxury of being able to use the cameras. The reason for this is because although they are low vision, some of them can see pretty clearly. It's just their field of view that is cut off. This does, however, come at the cost of spending more time on the cameras because they'd have to look around for longer. Thus, this could spend more power, putting them at a higher risk. It is still possible for them to see through the doors and the windows, thankfully, due to their vision either being a bit clear or, even if it is slightly blurry, able to make out when something is different. The downside, however, is that there is still the chance of them missing something moving due to an animatronic moving within their blind spot. This individual could also rely very heavily on the sound. However, at the same time, there's a chance they might not if they are too reliant on their sight. That is the main detail outside of the blind spots that allows them to be caught off guard. Someone who's legally blind might be in the best scenario here. They also can use the cameras and use certain things like color to possibly help them keep track of where these animatronics are. However, it's still going to take them much longer to use the cameras due to how blurry everything is. It all blends together, especially since it's dark. This will cost them power and time. Good news is, they could definitely still find those buttons on the doors quickly, and they could definitely still see through the doors and the windows. They would have to just use the different colorations depending on where the animatronics are standing in order to track when they are there and when to shut the door. One massive thing to note, of course, is Freddy and Foxy. Though it would be much harder to track these two with sight, they can still track them with sound. Foxy singing when he's still in the cove, Freddy laughing whenever he moves, and Foxy's very heavy, very loud footsteps when he's rushing down the hall. There isn't too much of a disadvantage here, as it actually just makes it much easier to track them. The only real possible disadvantage is if Freddy's laugh is echoing too much in the building to the point they can't exactly track how close he is. Someone who's completely blind might actually have the easiest time here, for the most part. So immediately right off the bat, yeah, they cannot rely on the cameras at all whatsoever. But they don't really need it in order to track what's going on. These animatronics have the tendency to be very, very loud. In fact, Bonnie is the only one that seems to be pretty quiet for the most part. Foxy is singing whenever he is inside of the cove. Not only that, but the moment he starts rushing down the hall, his footsteps are so loud that they likely would have time to shut the door. There is one risk to that, and it's that someone who's completely blind could potentially miss the button, which would cost them dearly. But back to noise. Chica makes a crud ton of noise in the kitchen doing whatever. Freddy is laughing every single time he moves. Chica also makes noise via footsteps by the door. And in fact, Bonnie, the only real noise he makes is also his heavy footsteps by the door. Now, they're not foolproof, not entirely, as it can be hard to tell at times when these footsteps are them stopping directly in front of the door or if they are completely passing it. One nice thing is, since they don't really have to rely on the cameras too heavily, except for if they figure out that they need to flick the camera up to stall Freddy and Foxy, and because they don't have to use the lights much at all, this means of the 3 individuals here, someone who's completely blind is going to be using the least amount of power possible. Last thing that should be mentioned is the one and only Golden Freddy. Yeah, he doesn't really have much of an effect here. If the main way to cause him to activate would be revolving around that one particular camera, then he's likely not going to show because someone with low vision is going to be too busy trying to track the other animatronics. Someone with legal blindness and someone who's completely blind has no reason to even use that camera. So he's kind of a no-show here. So far, the odds are actually pretty decent. But as usual, the blind are adaptive and have developed tools at their disposal. Immediately, the cameras have to be mentioned, because if there is one thing that blind people are very, very good at, it's using technology. Now, I'm certain that immediately somebody's probably wondering, how is a blind person supposed to use cameras? And that is an excellent question. And it is very simple-ish. You see, here in the real world, there are legal obligations here where companies are required to accommodate to those who are blind in order for them to do whatever job it is they're working, such as providing accessible equipment. This means that that tablet that is used for the cameras would likely be modified to where a blind person could actually use it. There would be voiceover installed on the device, allowing them to hover their finger over each camera, read the name, and know which one is which. This makes it easy for them to just flick the camera up to whichever one is Foxy or Freddy once they memorize it, and flick it back down, assuming they know to use it to stall them. They can also use their phone to describe what is on camera with apps such as Be My Eyes and Seeing AI. They have the option of using a sighted volunteer to have them describe what is there really quickly, or they can take a photo with their camera and have the AI describe what is in front of them. This, however, is going to come at the cost of time, and thus use up more power, because it will take them longer to use the cameras. Now, the next thing I believe that would come in handy is the skill of echolocation, as this can be used to track what is by the door. With a few couple of clicks, they can actually figure out if something or someone is standing right in front of the door, or maybe even by the door. This allows them to immediately be able to react and, well, shut the door accordingly. This last one I feel should be mentioned is the guide dog. It is unclear of where it could be helpful, but I do have a guess. Guide dogs are specifically trained to assist blind people in navigation and location. So, it's possible that maybe you could train the dog to react to the scent of the animatronics, because they have a very strong scent. The guide dog could actually alert the night guard each time they sense that the animatronic is near, and the guard can shut the door as needed. Overall, this is what could possibly happen if a blind person were to try and survive 5 nights at Freddy's. Do you think they would survive, or would they not? You let me know in the comments below. This is an analysis to see how a blind person might survive in this particular situation. If you are interested in other scenarios, comment down below what scenario you would like to see next, and I might be able to do it. I also write stories on this channel, original creepypastas, for those who are interested in storytelling. Of storytelling.